Hey, MCARBO brother, I'm Chris Nelson, President of CARBO. Really excited to introduce a new Sig Sauer P365 trigger spring kit for your SIG pistol. It'll also work for the SAS and the XL model. Love that we're working on this platform now. If you guys got any other ideas for it, let us know. Really love what we're able to achieve with this spring kit. So a 30% reduction from 6 1/4 down to 4 1/2. Really fantastic. Feels a world of difference now. Nice, clean, smooth, predictable break. Man, that is just spot on. Right in that sweet spot, right between 4 and 5. You know, nice 4 1/2 pound trigger pull, just feels absolutely amazing. Love what we could do with this. Not to mention we did a lot of testing with this. So drop testing and also with various ammo, including harder primer S&B ammo, no issues, no light strikes, none whatsoever. Love what we could do with this thing. Really impressed with it that there was that much room left in this trigger pull to make it that much better. Let's get on over to tabletop, show you we put this kit in. Parts and tools needed for this build. The Sig Sauer P365 trigger spring kit by MCARBO includes a lighter striker spring, a lighter sear spring, and a lighter striker block spring, hammer, bench block, 1/16 inch punch, 3/32 inch punch, 1/8 inch punch, little micro tip flathead screwdriver. Synthetic grease of PTFE really helps aid in the installation, and as always guys, make sure we're in iPro. Before we get started, let's go ahead and take this opportunity together, check our firearms, make sure they're clear. Check the chamber, check the bolt face, check the magazine well. This firearm's clear. All right, let's see what kind of factory trigger pull we're starting with. 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Let's take one more to confirm. £6, 5.1 ounces. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start off with a basic field strip. Go ahead and lock the slide back, rotate this takedown lever down. All right, and then let the slide go forward and separate the two just like that. So you've got your frame, you've got your slide here. Let's start with the slide. It's the simplest part. All right, so we can go ahead and remove our recoil spring and guide rod. Just pop it out like that. And then if you push up on the barrel from underneath like this, it'll pop that barrel out real easy. So there's your barrel, and your recoil spring and guide rod. Just set those aside. Now with this, it's really straightforward. You got your back plate here. It's captured by that little piece right there on the striker sleeve. So we're gonna compress that. And that's going to allow us to pull the whole thing apart. All right, so take your little flathead micro tip. We're going to push down on this little piece right here. You can see that, how it's got that little notch right there. So we're going to push down on it. See that? And that's what allows us to move that back plate. So it might be a little stiff. It's under some tension. But you can just kind of pull that back plate right off. You can see your striker sleeve right in there. So pull that back plate off just like that. Okay, we can set this aside. And now you can see the internal workings here. So we got our striker right here. So we'll just push that right out. You can see our striker spring there. Now just push down on that little striker block safety, because otherwise it'll just spring up at you. So there's your striker assembly right there. All right, good. That'll be really quick and easy. We'll set that down. And now we'll go ahead and let our little striker block safety up. And you can see the factory spring in there. All right, so we'll be replacing that, and that's it. You already got it disassembled. So it's really fast, straightforward. Let's go ahead and open up the kit, start replacing some of these springs. All right, so we'll open up our Sig Sauer P365 trigger spring kit by MCARBO. This will work for the 365 SAS and the XL, so don't worry about that. We've got a lighter striker spring in here, a lighter sear spring, and a lighter striker block safety spring. All three are gonna help give that nice, even trigger pull reduction. I'm gonna save the bag for the stock springs, but really, all we're gonna need right this second, we're gonna need the striker spring and the striker block safety spring right this second. The sear spring we'll just put aside. We'll need that in a little bit when we get to the frame. All right, so we got our 2 springs here. Let's go ahead and we'll put this one down. We can compare real quick. I've got the factory striker block safety spring. I've got the MCARBO striker block safety spring here on my right. All right, so you can see quite a bit of difference. All right, and all this is gonna add up to give us a nice, smooth, even reliable trigger pull reduction, which is key. All right, so we'll go ahead and put this stock spring back in that bag. We'll keep the stock parts. You never know, it might be handy, especially if you send it in for warranty work or anything like that. All right, so go ahead and take that lighter striker block safety spring. What I like to do is take some of that synthetic grease and put a little dab there on the end, and that's gonna help it locate. You know, synthetic grease is gunsmith glue. So what we'll do is we're gonna take our little striker block safety, right? This end right here with that little feature on top. You know, this little smooth end is going down, and you can see there's a channel there for that spring. So we're just going to put it right in that safety, and it's going to hold it in place just like that, which is really helpful, saves you a lot of frustration, so makes it easy. And we'll drop this right in. All right, stays captured. We'll compress it here in a second. Now grab your bench block. We're going to use that to help us disassemble this striker assembly. So what you'll notice with the striker assembly is the sleeve here will move back and forth. So what we want to do is compress this upper portion here. So this little feature right here, we're going to push down on the bench block with to give us a good little rest. All right, and that's going to allow us to put that tension down on that striker spring, and you can see these two little caps pop out. You know, these are the little collars that hold it in place. So get those out of there, and then we'll go ahead and pull off that factory striker spring right there. And what we can do real quick is compare them. All right, give you a little side-by-side MCARBO spring right here, factory spring right here. So you can see quite a bit of difference. I can get a lot more compression of this MCARBO spring, all right, a lot lighter. Yeah, this one's pretty stiff. So that factory spring is pretty stiff in comparison, and what we're going to do, man, is get a nice even combined reduction. So put this factory one back in the bag, save it for later, you never know. All right, so we got our lighter striker spring here. What we'll do is we'll take our striker with the sleeve, and keep in mind there's a little spring down in there on that striker sleeve. See that? Little short spring, so that needs to stay in place. I'm going to drop that striker spring right over top of the striker and the sleeve, kind of keep it together like this, and we're going to set it back down on the bench block right here. Compress it. These are two little collars right here, all right? Doesn't matter which side you put them in, you just need to get them in there. So with it compressed, there's a little tiny notch right in there on the striker about midway down. So that's the goal, is to compress it far enough to get these little collars in there. All right, so get your first one in, kind of hold it with your finger there, second one, and compress them and let that spring ride up. All right, perfect. So the striker assembly is back together. We can go ahead and throw it back into the slide. We're good to go here. Let's take our striker assembly. We'll get it started in here. Striker is ready to go in. We just got to compress that striker block safety. So use your little flathead micro tip, compress it, and then what we'll do is we'll line up that little feature right there, the silver one here, get it in the channel. It's going to lock right in place just like that. Next thing is just to compress that sleeve, but you can see you can't really compress it unless you hit that striker block safety, and then you can compress it. So we compress it, take your little back plate, all right, just like this. That's a feature that's going straight in. Kind of use that little lip to grab that sleeve and hold it down too simultaneously. And hear that little lock, we're good to go. All right, and we can do a quick little test. Make sure we have the function, right? So you shouldn't be able to push that striker forward and see the tip just yet, not until you push down on that safety. So you push down the safety, and now you can see the tip right there. All right, good. So we've got good function here, perfect. So what we can do is put the rest of it back together just so we're ready at the end. Take our barrel, drop it right in. All right, good, just let it lay naturally in there. Should lock in place, just like that. Then drop in your recoil spring and guide rod. All right, that big end is gonna go in first. And that little thin end is gonna locate right there on that lug of the barrel. So just compress it, and it'll lock right in place, just like that. All right, we're all good to go here. So we can set the slide down and focus on the frame. All right, so go ahead and grab your bench block. We're gonna set up the frame on the bench block just like this. We need to tap out this receiver pin right here. So grab your 3/32 inch punch, and we're just gonna tap it right out. Pretty simple, all right? And you'll like this, how easy this comes out. All right, there's your receiver pin right there. You can see it's kind of unique looking, so hard to get mixed up. We'll set that aside. All right, so with this, grab your little micro tip. We're gonna pry this metal receiver away from this plastic pistol grip here, just like that, all right? And the way it locates up here, it kind of drops right into two little polymer notches there. I'll show you here in a second. So we'll pull it right out, kind of taking a look at everything. Pull back on that trigger just a hair, but mainly you're pulling up at this angle, this 45. Because the way it locates, you can see right there, there's a little tab right down in there in the polymer on both sides. And you see those little features on both sides of that metal receiver there. All right, and that's how it drops in. So when we go to put it back in, we're gonna put it back in at this angle right here, get those tabs to locate, and then press it in. And after that, there's nothing really left in that polymer frame except the mag release down here. That is it. All right, so we can go ahead and set that frame aside. All right, so we'll do a quick little overview on this receiver here. One thing to take notice of right away is this takedown lever safety right here. This will trip you up a little bit. You know, it's kind of weird, this operation. So you'll see this lever locates in that little pocket right in there on that takedown safety lever. You can see it just right down in there, and then it follows all the way back, and it helps if you hold a little tension on it because it's barely held in there. The only thing holding it in is this pin right here, and you see this pin will naturally just try to work its way out. And that's because this takedown lever, the way it sits in there, if you push down on the sear, you can see the sear, you can see that tab of the sear moving in there. So this lever sits behind the sear. So the way it all functions is this lever right here is designed just to pull down on the sear. So during the takedown operation, we lock that slide back. So the slide stop is up like this, and then we push down on the takedown lever, and you'll see how it works right there. See that? So it's resting right here, just like this, and the sear is down. So you can see how this all works together. That's the most important thing, and I hope that's the most valuable thing in this video, because that'll really trip you up if you try to go about it on your own. It takes a little minute to figure all that out and get it right. So down on the lever, up on the slide stop, you see that sear, right? So that sear is moving. So very important we get this linkage right here set up, you know, in a way that facilitates this operation. So this lever right here, this back portion will locate behind that tab on the sear. There's a little head on this bar right here that locates in that channel right on that takedown lever. And you'll see it in better detail soon enough, but I just want to point that out first. All right, and then there's these two pins here we'll be removing. You've got your trigger bar spring, but this really acts like a trigger return spring. So you can see over here, pulling on that trigger, that's what sets the tension on the trigger. So it acts much like a trigger return spring. Then you've got your disconnector right here, and then you jump inside and you've got your sear and your sear spring. We'll be replacing that. And one last thing real quick, so you've got your safety lever in here. All right, this is also important. This is one to easily miss. So it just kind of functions just like that, sits in there, sort of loose, no spring tension or anything like that. All right, but it's captured on this pin right here, which is the safety lever pin. So the safety lever pin works with the safety lever. Nice, common sense. And you can barely see it down here going through just behind that sear. See that little silver portion right there? That's that safety lever pin going all the way through, sitting behind on that sear. All right, and this is your sear pin right here. So that's what locates the sear spring and the sear itself. So very important we get this orientation correct on the safety lever. And you can also see that safety lever, the opposite end down here. All right, so there it is, just under, sitting under the disconnector here. It's that opposite leg right there. It's kind of like a pointed end, whereas up here, it's a little flatter. All right, so it just sits in there and flops around. All right, good. So that's a quick once over. Now we can start ripping it all apart. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is remove that safety lever, just because it's one of those small intricate parts and it'll be easier to get a good look at it this way. So what we'll do is we'll pry up on this safety lever, just like that, all right? And we will pull out the safety lever on the opposite side here. So we'll pull out this pin. So you can see this pin here, kind of got this special feature up top. It's got a couple little tabs there on both sides. All right, it's very unique looking. So we'll set the safety lever pin down, and now we'll pull out the safety lever on the opposite side. Otherwise, it'll just kind of fall out mid-operation here. At least we'll know what it is and where it goes when we pull it out. So you can see there's the bottom portion right there. All right, so we're gonna kind of just let it fall out, just like that. So you can see that's how it went in. So this portion's up top, this is down below. Very simple. We'll set this safety lever down for a second. So there's a takedown safety lever bar right there. All right, so it's free to move. And you can see how it was locating right there on that sear. So there's that silver tip of the sear right there. And this bar goes right in like that. Captures just like that. So this back bend right here is what's sitting behind that tab on the sear. Goes in just like this. Now we'll go ahead and we'll remove the safety lever just for the heck of it. And you'll see how it locates on this opposite side right here. So it kind of runs in this channel right here. You kind of see that little groove cut out right there. And it rides on this portion of the receiver. All right, so we can go ahead and remove our takedown safety lever bar here. All right, now that it's released. And you can get an idea here, better look at how it's captured in the safety lever. So pull it out, see that little cutout, that little channel there in the safety lever, and you see that little rounded nub there. That's the feature that goes in the lever itself. So we can set it aside. It's kind of the craziest looking piece, so it can be the most intimidating, so glad we started with that first. Set this down. All right, now we can remove this safety lever. So you'll notice how the safety lever moves freely over here. And you'll notice how it's got that little notch cut out right there. See that in the center of it? And that's what's riding right there on the receiver. Until you get to this point, and now it's not located, not captured, and it'll come right out. Just like that. It's a very critical feature right here, that we get that to line up and locate on the receiver when we put it back in. And you can see there's not much of it there. All right, there's a takedown lever, so we can set that aside. All right, so we got our slide stop still sitting here. So as long as it's sitting in the frame, you're good. And you can also see if that leg of the spring is on that feature internally here. All right, good. So moving on back, you can see we still got our trigger return spring in place. Still got that sear pin in place. All right. Naturally, you'd think, well, let's just get that sear pin out. But you get over here, the disconnector is blocking the opposite side of the sear pin. So we got to remove that disconnector. So to get the disconnector out, we've got to go ahead and remove this trigger bar spring or trigger return spring, right? Since that's what controls the return of that trigger. So we'll go ahead, compress this leg, pop it off. So you can see on this trigger return spring, it's got two legs, and these are exactly the same. So it's universal. You don't have to worry about getting in the right spot. It's exactly identical. So you can see one of the legs locates down here on this portion of the frame, right? The other leg locates right in that trigger bar right there. So all we got to do is compress this leg right here, and it'll pop right out. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to set up our receiver on the bench block like this, have that trigger hanging off the side. You just don't want anything touching that trigger because it'll move the bar on you while you're trying to compress this. So just push straight down on that spring. It might help to use this flat head. Hold it and kind of pop it out of place just like that. So you can see it just popped right out of place. All right, these are the little features it located on right here. And you can see the spring, it's even all the way around, same. So you don't have to worry about which way it goes in. So we'll set this trigger return spring aside. All right, now you can see the trigger bar, trigger. This stuff is all free now to do what we want with it. And if you guys want a flat trigger in the future, let us know. I mean, that's something we've been looking at. It'd be real simple to go from here and replace that trigger. It'd just be a matter of popping out that one pin right there that holds that trigger in place, and that's it. All right, here's your disconnector right here. You can see how it interacts and engages, the way it locates inside the receiver, and it simply just slides in and out just like that. So I'm going to slide it right off, just like that. It'll drop out on you, and that's how it looks. Completely smooth on the back side, and the engagement feature right up top. All right, so we can set our disconnector aside, and now we finally have access to our sear pin. You can see it right in at the top there. So we'll push that right out, sear pin, and that'll allow us access to the sear and the sear spring. We can replace that last spring. Just push down on the sear, all right, and take your 3/32 inch punch, and we're just going to push this whole thing out. You'll see that pin coming through on the opposite side there. Keep that punch in place. Here's your pin, a little short, smooth pin all the way around with a little head on the top. All right, we'll set that pin down. Now we'll take a good look here at the sear and the sear spring. So you can see which side that sear spring's on. It's on that slide stop side, right there, all right? And you'll see the way it locates in there. Now that everything's mostly out, see that little hook on that sear spring right up here? How it locates on the sear in that little pocket right there. And then you'll notice too on the inside, how that sear spring, there's a little tiny leg, how it's basically just protruding right there through that hole. You can see it. And there's a little tiny shelf in there. Hard to see right this second. Let's pull it out and we can look at that shelf. All right, so we'll pull this whole thing out, kind of fall out on you. And this is the orientation we need to drop it into as well, just like that. All right, so I'm gonna have to just drop it out. Try to keep it together, but unfortunately that's the best you get. But what we can see in here though is this little cutout. Way at the bottom. All right, that's where the sear will locate. There's a piece that'll locate in there. And this little shelf right here is for that short leg of the sear spring. All right, so we'll set this receiver down just for a second. Let you take a look at this sear and the sear spring. So the way they kind of go together, just like this. All right, that's how they go together, just like that. So you get that little leg right there that locates inside that channel on the sear. Pretty straightforward and simple. And this little tiny leg right here is going to set the tension on it. So that's how we're going to end up dropping it in, just like this. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll replace this sear spring real quick. Set the sear down. See if I can do this. So I got the MCARBO spring right here on my right here, and the factory spring on the left here. And it's hard to really do any sort of springiness comparison, but you can see it's definitely thinner. So the factory spring right here is much thicker. The MCARBO spring is much thinner. So that's the main thing. You know, we did exact copy of that sear spring, just made it lighter. All right, so we'll put the stock one aside, don't need that. We'll go ahead and we'll install our lighter sear spring. Let me lay out all the parts real quick and run through them one more time. All right, so here's all the parts you should have here from the receiver. So you got your receiver pin right here. That's what locates the receiver inside the polymer frame. Your trigger return spring or your trigger bar spring. You got your sear spring. This is the sear pin right here, a little short one, smooth all the way around. You got your safety lever pin right here. It's kind of got all those unique features all over it. Safety lever, disconnector right here, the silver shiny one. This is your takedown lever safety, this bar right here, and this is your takedown lever. That's it. All right, so for reassembly, we're gonna start with the hardest part first, which is getting the sear back in. It's not that bad if you do this technique. All right, so you can see this little feature right here is what's gonna locate inside the frame at that base. All right, that little channel I mentioned earlier that was cut out for it, that's the feature that moves back and forth in there, so we have to drop it straight in. All right, this is your striker engagement surface with the sear right here. So I'm gonna mention some synthetic grease, PTFE, highly recommend it. This is great for the engagement surface. So this is just to help get a little extra lighter trigger pull reduction, less friction is the goal. And you could also polish that up if you wanted to get even more of a smooth, clean trigger pull. All right, so we just threw a little grease on there. It's a start. Now what we're gonna do, all right, so this is the big thing. Grease is gunsmith glue. All right, so go ahead and fill up this channel right here with some grease, because that's where that leg of the sear spring is gonna locate. And this side right here, this whole face, just go ahead and get it nice and sticky. I mean, I say sticky because, well, it's gonna stick the spring to it, but it is a nice lubricant, so it's not gonna hurt anything. I'm gonna get a little more in there, and it's all right if you get a little bit inside where that pin's gonna go. It's gonna push right out at the end. So I just got a nice amount of grease on there, and what I'm gonna do is take the lighter sear spring, and we're gonna get it to locate right on the side of the sear, more or less kind of stick and hold in place. Because otherwise you're gonna be fighting it, trying to get it all lined up, and you'll see in a minute. Just kind of get it lined up just like that. Got that little leg right there under the sear. This side's all set. And the cool thing is you can pinch it right here and it's gonna stay in place. And the holes are lined up, which is key. So we'll go ahead and grab a receiver and we're gonna drop it right in. All right, and this is the money maker right here. So you wanna get this little tab right here to drop into that little tiny pocket right straight down. See that? All right, so that's the most important thing. And then we want that little leg of the sear spring to locate on that shelf right there. You can see it down in the bottom. All right, so we're gonna drop it straight in. You wanna get this feature to locate in that pocket on the bottom. That's first priority right there. So you're gonna drop it right in, kind of let it drop. Take your little micro tip. The good thing is it's all stuck together, right? Which is the whole point of using that grease, AKA gunsmith glue. All right, there it is. That's the money maker right there. You got both items inside the receiver. They're right where they need to be. Now we'll take our 3/32 inch punch, go from the opposite side here and capture them, because you see they want to jump out on you. It's just the nature of it. It's what keeps us employed. All right, so you get the punch right through just like that. And that's it, man. That's the technique. Otherwise, it would really give you a lot of heartache. But that's it, simple and straightforward. And the reason we went through this side over here is because, well, we want to put that pin in on this side with the head on it. So we're going to now take our sear pin, we're going to push this punch right out. And you can kind of steer with the punch. What I mean by steer is you can kind of move all these components up and down to make sure they're lined up for that pin. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing the sear pin through and it's driving out the punch. I'm not pulling the punch out. So that punch isn't going anywhere unless I can push that pin in further. There we go. And I just kind of use the micro tip to compress it and it's in there, just like that. So you can see it's all the way through. Perfect. That was the hard part right there. A little bit of tension right now, but once we get the pin in there, that's going to set the rest of the tension, because you can see there's part of the spring right there. Well, it's not completely compressed yet until we get that safety lever pin all the way through. And that'll be next. All right, so next we got to get that little leg of the spring up, right? We got to put some more tension on that sear, because right now it's at least held in place, but minimal tension. So what we're going to do is go on the opposite side here, where the trigger bar is, still in place. All right, we're going to go through this bottom hole right here, which is where the safety lever is going to locate here in a minute. And you can see that little leg sticking through. All right, so we want to add some clearance. We've got our 1/16 inch punch right here. And what we're going to do is get our little punch in there and just push up on that leg of the spring, just to make some clearance for that pin. So you can see how I can push up just like that. And that should be enough to get this pin right in. So you can see this is the pin right here, all those unique features on it. All right, and see those little notches? Well, that's where that little leg of the spring is going to locate. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll get the pin started, and I'm going to push up. So once I got that pin located in the hole, just a hair, I'm going to push up with that little punch that I got through there, and that's going to allow me to push that pin the rest of the way through. So you got to kind of feel your way through it. So it's got to be one clean motion. So I'm going to push up with my punch, compressing that little leg of the spring, the sear spring, and I'm going to push through with that pin. And you can see I got that pin right through. All right, so you can see it starting to make its way through the back of the sear there. You're just kind of resting against the back side of it. All right, so we got that second pin in, so that's good. We still got our trigger bar flopping around over here, but it's all coming together. All right, so the 2 pins are most important. Now the next thing we got to do is get this takedown lever in place, and that takedown lever safety spring, and then get it to locate properly on that sear like we mentioned earlier. So we will have to back out this pin just a hair. That's why we're going to wait on the safety lever just for now. All right, we got the pin in there, which is good. Let's get the rest of this linkage on this side right here with the slide stop on it, and then we'll proceed with the opposite side. All right, so now we're going to install the takedown lever and the takedown lever safety. All right, so you can see how the takedown lever safety, which is this bar here, how it locates in that little channel right there on the lever, right by the actual lever. All right, so it'll locate just like that, hold it in place. This piece is going to locate behind the sear, and then over here, remember we had that little groove right here cut into it, so we can locate that into the receiver. There's a little groove on the receiver that'll locate against. All right, so we'll go ahead and let's drop in this lever and then get the safety lever in place. So we'll grab our receiver, we'll drop in our lever. All right, lever is going to be on the same side as the slide stop. Go ahead and start inserting our lever. All right, and you'll see you'll kind of hit the opposite side like that. We'll rotate the lever until that little feature gets clearance to push all the way through. Kind of snaps through like that. You can see how everything's situated. And then we're going to turn it. And now it's on that groove right there of the receiver. So you can see that, and that's holding it in place. All right, good. So now we got that all covered. Take our safety lever bar, just like this little nub right here, little rounded piece. All right, that's going to locate into the bar up front here. So go ahead and rotate your lever. You see a little notch, channel on the takedown lever, and get that little rounded piece in there. All right. All right, now just go ahead and move that lever into position. Want to get this piece behind the sear. See that little silver tab right in there? So we'll go ahead and we'll drop it right in. All right, not before backing out our little pin, just a hair. So back out that pin. You can just pull up on it like that. And it's not really holding anything just yet, so it's fine. All right, so you just want to get this lever around that pin. You can see how that's what captures it. So just rotate this head of the pin as well to give you a little clearance. And it's going to drop right in like that. And you want to make sure we dropped it right in place. Push down on that sear while you're at it just to ensure you get it behind the sear. And then rotate this little pin around. And we don't want to compress it just yet. We're ready to. Just want to make sure we got our linkage in place up here with the takedown lever. So you can see that little piece is located inside the lever still, so we're good. So we can go ahead and just press down on this pin, all right, and that locks it all in place. So that's good. So what you'll see happen is, this will kind of want to jump out here while we're doing the rest of the reassembly. So just come back and check this pin every now and again, make sure it's fully compressed and it's captured and keeping everything in place right here. Because this is the little complexity that adds some real irritation on the reassembly. So make sure you keep an eye on that. All right, so we're good up to this point. Since we're still working on the internals of this receiver, let's go ahead and just get that safety lever in. So this bottom hole, all right, is what the safety lever pin is going to locate into. And the safety lever is going to locate in this channel right here. All right, so we just did the takedown lever and the takedown lever safety. All right, so what we have to do, keep your finger on this safety, this takedown lever safety, because we've got to push out this pin again, just a hair. This is what keeps it locked and located in place, so keeping your finger on it is going to ensure you don't have to repeat any steps. So back over here, just push out that pin just a hair, just enough so you can drop in that safety lever. All right, so we got adequate clearance in there. So now I still got my finger on that takedown safety lever. All right, so I got the safety lever ready to go in place. This is how it's going to drop in. So this little feature's up, this other little pointed one's down, just like that. Simple and straightforward, and you're just going to let it fall right into that channel right there. Let it drop right in, do its thing. All right, so I'm keeping tension on the takedown lever safety, and I'm not going to let that other safety lever fall out. Coming over here, dropping this trigger bar just a hair so I can see in that hole. And then I'm going to take my little 1/16 inch punch, and I'm going to maneuver it, that safety lever, just a hair. Yeah, I can see part of it right there. Now I'm going to push from the opposite side on that pin and get it to locate, just like that. All right, good. So we'll test it. So we'll just turn it over and see if it falls out. And it didn't fall out, and that's a good thing. You can see the bottom portion of your safety lever right here. So you can move that and see if it falls out, and it doesn't. And you can see the top portion right here. So we're good to go. We got our safety lever in place. Excellent. We are almost there. All right. Not too bad. Now let's go ahead and get our disconnector in place. And I'm still kind of keeping tension on everything. I think it's just force of habit after dealing with this assembly so many times. So grabbing the disconnector, there's that smooth featured side. That's what's going to go down and kind of locate it in the channel on that frame. And then this feature is what's sticking up towards the top. So the trigger bar still kind of flopping in the way there. So get this disconnector in that channel. So just kind of got it lined up, and I just push it straight up, and that's it. As long as it's in those grooves there, you're golden. And we'll put the trigger bar back in place. Trigger bar is going to locate back here just like this, which is important because we're getting ready to put that spring on it. And it's going to capture and hold that disconnector in place. All right, so I'm still compressing both of those trigger bar, safety lever bar, keeping those compressed. That's key. Now we can put the last item, that trigger bar spring, trigger return spring, in place. So remember how we took it out? There's a little notch right here that it locates in, and then a little hole right there on the trigger bar. So we're just going to drop in our spring, but take notice there's a through hole right here for that leg of the trigger bar spring to go through. And you'll see, watch that little leg. As I push it through, I'm going to get it to drop and locate right there in that notch cutout first. All right, so we got most of it in place, ready to go. Grab your bench block, set it up, keeping pressure on both sides of this receiver. We want to just get tension on the trigger bar now. So keeping everything in place, try not to hit that trigger down here. You don't want to move that trigger bar. All right, so now we're going to push down on this trigger bar spring and get it to pop into the trigger bar. So keep your finger over top of this little piece right here. That'll kind of hold it in place while you're pushing down on this trigger bar spring. And I'm using the flat side of the micro tip. All right, so even if you get a portion of it captured like this, that's good. Now you just slowly push it back, and it just pops right into that hole, just like that. All right, so you can see we got that trigger bar, trigger return spring in place. There we go. So we got this piece located down here, and get the other little leg located in the actual trigger bar itself. Awesome. So everything is good to go. Look at that, good tension. All right, so we got our disconnector in place, trigger bar spring set. You can see this feature of the safety lever over here. It's riding on that groove, which is good. All right, back here in the working area, so you can see our sear, lighter sear springs in place. Let's see if we got good tension on it. Oh yeah, good tension. Excellent. And we got our 2 pins, our sear pin, our safety lever pin. Make sure we got our safety lever in there. Just kind of flops back and forth in that receiver there. All right, looking good. Perfect. So we are ready to proceed here and making sure we got our takedown safety lever in place with the takedown lever. All right, and you'll see how it all goes back together. This is kind of interesting. So what we'll do is drop this thing right into that frame. So you got your frame ready. All right, you got your receiver all put back together. Remember those 2 little tabs on the inside, on opposite sides of that polymer frame? That's where they're going to locate right there in those little cutouts on the metal receiver here. All right, so get the trigger through the hole, just like that. At a 45, you're going in, pushing down, straight down to get that takedown lever in that pocket, and then pushing forward to get the rest of the receiver into the polymer grip, just like that. Always love that snap. It's a good sound. You can see that little through holes all lined up perfect. So we can grab our pin and just push it straight in. And you give it a couple taps or 2. Shouldn't take much. All right, so we got a receiver pin in place. Most importantly with the receiver. There we go, we are good. All right, so this is interesting here because you'll notice, you know, you may be like, man, what's going on? Why can't I get this takedown lever to drop? You got to push up on the slide stop, and then you can rotate the takedown lever down, just like that. So we're ready to drop in our slide. So go ahead and get your slide lined up, push it all the way back, lock it, flip the takedown lever up. Good to go. Let's do a quick little function check. Whoo, that feels good. Hold the trigger down, listen for the reset. Perfect. Oh man, that is nice. Now let's measure this trigger pull. Let's see what we get for modified trigger pull reduction. 4 pounds, 8.7 ounces. Let's take one more confirm. 4 pounds, 9.4 ounces. Well, there you have it, guys. A nice 30% trigger pull reduction for your Sig P365. It also worked for the XL and the SAS model. Really love what we were able to achieve with this. So we didn't have to really detract anything from this trigger pull. This crisp reset, man, really feels nice. And there's not a lot of travel with it either. So this trigger pull, man, right at that 4.5 pounds feels absolutely perfect. And I really like this pistol. I mean, this is really nice and much more appealing now than that 6 1/4. Could you live with the 6 1/4? Of course, but is it going to help you really get the most performance and accuracy out of this thing? Not really. So now that we've got a nice 4.5 pound trigger, I love what we're working with here. I want to do more with it. Eager to hear what you guys think about this. I mean, a flat trigger, an improved striker. I know there are a lot of problems with those strikers right out the gate. A lot of third-party reviews really kicked it around pretty hard. So eager to hear what you guys think about this platform. Also, we did a ton of testing with this. So drop testing, no issues. We also shot a bunch of different ammo through it to ensure there are no light strikes, even harder primer S&B ammo, none whatsoever. Really fantastic, great solid primer ignition every time. Really love what we were able to achieve with this. So really excited to hear your feedback about it. We appreciate you guys. The MCARBO Brotherhood, thank you for bringing this one to us. I'm glad we did it. This is a really popular pistol. So excited to hear what kind of results you guys get. Thank you guys very much. Hope you found the video useful. We always appreciate a like or a subscribe or whatever you can do. Help us get the word out there. Thank you guys. As always, happy shooting.